everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Isabel and this is my library. So as you guys already know, I'm a fan of reading and books, but you probably don't know yet that I am a big fan of book journaling. For the past couple years, I've kept a yearly reading book journal, documenting my reading journey, being able to explore my other interests, arts and crafts and stickering, scrapbooking. And what I present to you today is a flip through of my reading journal for the year 2025. I know it's already February, middle of February as I'm filming this video, but I still wanted to show you a little bit of my current reading journal and what some of my spreads consist of and why I've chosen to keep certain spreads throughout the years and add and change others along the way. So one of the last things I usually do is this page. I find it very pressuring to do this just right. I never like beginning with decorating this page or illustrating this page, so I usually leave this somewhere around the middle of the year to kind of do the title page. There's something about this first page that scares me. So this year, this is not a constant on my reading journals, but this year I decided to incorporate an index. I have tried the method of indexing before. Other years I've not done it, but I decided that this year I wanted something that was a little more organized. I do enjoy organization. At times, I don't reference this page as often as I should. I kind of learn where things are in my journal, more or less, but I still like that there is somewhere I can go to if I'm searching for something quickly, and I don't want to flip through each of the pages. So this is the layout that I chose. Each of the spreads is marked there, and it gives you a little bit of information as to what I've included in each of the spreads. So these first two spreads include a tally of the books that I read throughout the year. So I keep this very simple. It's just the title, the author, and the rating. And last year I did need more than the two initial pages, so I went ahead and made it 4 pages or 2 spreads for 2025. Seeing as last year I did read over 100 books, so I'm estimating that I will need more or less that same amount as well. And I know I haven't really been telling you what I'm using as far as decorating. I just use a mixture of everything that I have. So there's obviously some stickers from various shops. I will link some of the shops that I have gotten stuff from before in the description box below, but I've been collecting these for such a long time that some of them I might not remember super clearly where they're from, but I'll try to link everything that I can. These are some pen papers there, some washi tape. This one I always like highlighting where I'm going to be writing just to make it stand out a little bit. There's minimal designing on this one. And of course I chose a thicker washi for these. And again, the second spread mirrors that as well. So next we get to the Goodreads challenge portion of the journal. So I have a box with a number for each of the books that I read. I've mapped out about 117. Last year, again, I had exactly 100 books I read, so I went ahead and gave myself a little bit of extra room in case I read a couple more, but I'm usually around the 100 mark each year, so I kept it like that. I also like to color in the boxes according to the genre of the book, so I can kind of look and see more or less what I am reading more of or less of. The categories are general fiction, manga or graphic novels, romance, fantasy, thrillers, game books, classics or books of literary merit, middle grade or young adult, horror, mystery, literary fiction, sci-fi, nonfiction, memoirs or biographies, and books of poetry. So I do know that a lot of times there's an overlap with genres. I'm aware of that. So at times it could be a little tricky to classify some of these, but I mostly go by whatever Goodreads has listed as one of the tags for the book. I know also, like, when I put manga or graphic novel, it's not really clear what type. Usually the manga and graphic novels that I read are horror, but that's kind of like a category of its own. So far, by just looking at the coloring, I can tell that I've read mostly horror so far this year, with two thrillers, one mystery, and one nonfiction piece. And again, I'm a little bit behind on this. I think I'm at maybe book 13 right now in the year. I'm a little bit behind right now, so I do need to get caught up here. So next is my 25 and 25. This is something that I do every year. I try to pick books that have been on my radar or have been on my shelves for some time, or books that I meant to read the year prior and I didn't get to because life happened. So this is 25 and 25. So these are the 25 books I would like to read this year. I know I've already read two of them, actually three of them. I did finish Beautiful Ugly today, actually, so I need to add that in. But I've already read Haunt Sweet Home, and I've already read This Is Where We Talk Things Out, and I've already read Beautiful Ugly. So 3 out of the 25 so far. And the rest of these all have plans as to when I'm going to be reading them. So for the most part, I think I've allocated a point in time to fulfill certain reading challenges, to participate in certain readathons. So in my head, and I'm being vague about those because you'll see some of those that I want to participate in later on because they have dedicated spreads for them. But yeah, I more or less have a plan of, where I want to squeeze them in throughout the year to guarantee that I'll get to reading them. Right underneath, I just simply put the stars, how many stars. So this was 5 star, 2.5. This, you'll find out soon what my rating was, but I don't want to spoil that vlog where I am reading this. So, because I think this video will probably come up before that vlog. So this is my 25 and 25. Now, of course, I do this every year, like I told you, and I don't always finish. So I do include my second chance and my third chances on here. So this is my second chance to read 24 and 24. And there were 13 books left over from the year before. So these were all on a spread last year, and they were the part of the 24 books I wanted to read in 24, and they were books I did not get to read last year. So as you see here, I've already read one of the 13. I already read What We See When We Read, and I know that this was part of my January wrap-up video, which you already saw. 1 star, sadly. That was the first book I read this year, 2025. So this is my opportunity to complete that. I like goals. I like setting challenges for myself, but I also allow myself some grace. If I don't finish this year, there's always next year, and there's always next year. And as long as I am making progress, these are all ongoing goals for me. So I don't see it as, oh, I failed to read these 13 books in 2024. I just see it as I'll get to them sometime in 2025 or the year after. So I like doing this simply because it gives me an opportunity to keep track of my reading and actually get through a book that's been sitting on my shelves for a while. And it's not just, oh, it didn't happen in 24, so forget about it. No, I carried it on to my 2025. I also still like to start with a brand new set of books for the following year just because it's fun and refreshing, and that's a big goal for me. I always want my reading to be fun and to be refreshing. Some of these, maybe one or two, I think, would be rereads for me. For example, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is a book that I've read many times before, but I had just purchased this version of the book, which is a pop-up book. I believe I showed this in one of my previous videos, but I added it again. I wanted to read this version of it with all of the cool pages and illustrations and pop-up effects. So yeah, that's why that one's there. And of course, I still have my 2023 books that were left over as well. So again, these were 15. I actually read less of them in 23. So these are 15 that were left over from 2023. And again, I do have plans to read all of these. As far as these are, there's several ways I've done these before in the past. These are stickers that I just print on my Canon Ivy printer. I can show you that in another video if there's interest. But basically, I just print four per little. Let me show you. I think I have one here. So yeah, I basically print four per sticker sheet, and then I just cut those off and use them as I see fit. I've also done these on regular sticker paper, and I've used my Cricut to make them, so I've done that before in the past, and it's just a matter of what I have more accessible. The Canon IV printer is very small and portable, so most of the time I'll print through there, but I've also printed from my Cricut as well to get these done. And it's just so fun to put these, and they make the pages look so lovely. So then we have some of the challenges. So each year I try to complete the alphabet challenge. So this is a very popular challenge. I'm sure you've heard of it, but basically I try to read one book that starts with each of the letters of the alphabet. I've documented this before in different ways. This year I decided to do this kind of a thing. So again, you see I've read one with a B, I've read two R books, one F book, so on and so forth. And the goal is to get at least one per letter of the alphabet, which I am normally able to complete this challenge. And it's something that happens organically. And then once I'm getting to the ending of the year, I might be tempted to pick something up. If I don't have any V books, I'll look to see what do I have that has a V, and I'll be tempted to just, drop that in. I also like to fulfill these using books from my list. So a lot of times this is my first go-to. So if there is a readathon, or if there is like a particular challenge, let's say the buzzwordathon, or which I'll talk about in a little bit. But if there's something that I have to pick books from, I usually go to my list of books that I want to read and kind of pick from here to kind of help me complete this as well. But yeah, so this is the alphabet challenge. So next we have the book shelfie, and basically I've just drawn out the books on the shelves. I've drawn the little shelving, and what I do is each time that I read a book, I go ahead and add it to one of the shelves. And what I try to do with the coloring is just keep the color of the book. So this is a mostly blue book, light blue book. This is a red book. So I think I've been reading a lot of teal colored things and blue covers. So yeah, that's usually what I end up doing. And then it's just this beautiful filled in image of the books that I read throughout the year. So next we have the Buzzword 2025 Reading Challenge. I'm sure if you follow Kayla from Books and Lala, you are familiar with the Buzzword Challenge. She's been doing this for quite a few years. So what I did for this one is I went ahead and printed the graphic that she came up with, which is on Instagram, and I went ahead and added each of the requirements in these boxes. And in pencil, what I tend to do is I look through my list, like I told you earlier, and I kind of put ideas of what I have on the things that I want to read that could fulfill these challenges. So, for example, for January, Truth and Lies, I have here an Academy for Liars. So that's something that I want to do for the Truth and Lies one. I know a lot of people complete this challenge in different ways. Some people like to do it at that month. Like in January, I have to read a book with the word truth and lies in it. In February, I have to read a book with a water word in it. I don't really do it like that. I do it throughout the year. So whenever I read a book, for example, I read Five Little Pigs by Agatha Christie in January, I went ahead and added that for animals, right? So it has the word pigs in it. So I went ahead and added it for there. And I just find that it helps me complete the challenge without really restricting my TBR for the month, which again is something that I try to do to keep some sort of like balance and mood reading option in there for myself. So that's how I personally handle these. And then I also go ahead and like jot them down here. And if I read multiple, for example, the December's alliteration, a book that has some sort of alliteration, so I already have two of those, and I kind of, if I can fit them in, I'll put both of those in. For some of these, the spacing is not there, so I went ahead and just put one. Um, and yeah, that's how I document that. So this year, in addition to the buzzword for the challenge, Kayla also added requirements for the covers. So this year it has two parts. So it has the words and then it has what's on the cover. So that was pretty fun. So I decided to try to do both. And I've had some success with this one so far, as you see. So January, it's a book that has patterns. February is a book with a skyline. um April is a book with an animal on the cover. And sometimes we think these could overlap. For example, the April is a book that has an animal word, Five Little Pigs, but unfortunately on the cover there are no animals. So I couldn't include it for this one, but I did read Brat and there's a deer on the cover, so I went ahead and added it there. And back here obviously we have all my ideas that I have for that. And May was eyes, March was books, celestial, technology, transportation, a monochrome cover, food and drinks on the cover. So I did use the Five Little Pigs for this one, as we do have the little plate of food and the beer, which we know is, if you've read this, it's an important part of the book. But it's there. Weapons for October, and then foliage for September. So that's so far how I'm doing with this second part, which is new to the buzzword challenge. So next we have TBR recommends. And so far I've read two of the books on this list. This is where I'll probably go to next. So basically, I do subscribe to the TBR book recommendations, and it's basically a service that you get to have book experts recommend books to you, and I find this to be a lot of fun. They basically have access to my Goodreads and they see what my reading tastes are, and I fill out this questionnaire. And every, I believe it's 4 times a year that they do it. So every 3 months they look at my list of what I'm reading, they look at my preference list, and they recommend 3 books that they think would be great for me to read. And this is where I document that. So I got my last one in January, and January they recommended these 3 books for me. So I've already read these, and now the only one missing is Tiny Threads, and I'll go ahead and read that one soon. And I just like to keep track of the success of the TBR book recommendations. It's so much fun to just have like these books recommended to you. If you've never tried it, it's very cool. You don't have to do a yearly thing. You can also just do it once. You can randomly ask them to do a one-time thing and they'll do it for you, but it is a lot of fun. So next is the Read the Rainbow Challenge. So this one has to do with the colors of the covers. So I do have this sticker sheet that facilitates with this. So I've already read a book with a red cover, and again, it's not all red, but there's a lot of red on this top half of it. And yeah, you just try to read books that are of the different colors, and then this is how I showcase that. And I have my beautiful Simply Gilded washi tape there with the rainbow, and that just is another challenge that I complete as I'm reading the rest of the things and completing other challenges. So next is the TBR jar. And I do have a TBR jar with all of the titles on my TBR shelves, which there's a lot of books in there. And so what I do is, since I do scan all of my books, I print out the pages from Libib, which is the app that I use to keep track of my collected works. So I print these out and I fold them and put them in a jar, and then I select these. And once I read them, I go ahead and cycle through them, and I continue reading more and more of them, and it just helps me play a little game and read a little bit. I will have an upcoming video where I pick from the jar and read more. So far, I did this um with my husband. He always picks one for me and then I pick another. So right now I have Five Total Strangers as one of the picks that came up, and then Tainted Cup as another pick. So once I'm done with either of those, I'll go ahead and pick again and pick again. And yeah, it just keeps it fun and allows me to dig in my TBR shelves to find new things to read. So this is my the Book Troop book club page. So as you may or may not know, Gabby from Gabby Reads does have the Book Troop book club, which I've been reading books for a very long time. It is a thriller book club, and so far these are the three books that she's mentioned will be a part of this year. I already went ahead and read in January Dark Places, that was 3 stars. February I just finished reading Beautiful Ugly, and then next month for March will be Listen to Your Sister, that's the book of that month. And I do try to read these the month of. If for some reason like I fall a little bit behind, I'll still read it like in the next couple months, but I do try to read them that month simply because I like participating in the live shows where Gabby and a host will read the book and then talk about it during the live show and share their responses, and there's usually spoilers involved, so I do like to be caught up with these to participate in this challenge. Similarly, there's the Literally Dead book club from Kayla Books and Lala. So hers is a February through November one. So the February book is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. I have not started this yet, but I will. And then the March book is You're Fatally Invited. So that's all we know so far. So once I find out what those books are, I go ahead and start adding these to the pages, and then I read them as the months happen. And again, with these book clubs, I do like to read those the month that they are selected for, simply so that I can participate in the live show. Another challenge that I take part of, or book club I take part of, is the Read Christie challenge, Read Christie 2025. I've been doing this for quite a few years. I am a big Agatha Christie fan. My mom has read all of the Agatha Christie books. So since I was a little girl, I grew up in a household full of Christies, and listening to my mom rant and rave about Poirot and Miss Marple. So I do participate in this every year. They usually have a theme, so and they do allow room for alternative options. So they do give you like the book they recommend for the month, but then if you've read that one or you can't find that one or whatever your case is, they do give you alternative titles. So at times, other years it's been like traveling around the world or adventuring, stuff like that. This year, their topic was careers or professions. So I believe each of these books features people of different professions. The only one I've read so far was the January book. I still haven't read the February one. Five Little Pigs. This was about artists. So I went ahead and read this one. I had never read it before. Some of these are the alternative titles simply because I've read a lot of Christie already. So if the selected book was, or the main book was already chosen, I went ahead and picked another one. So these are not all of the 12 options that they are doing for this year. These are the ones that I will be partaking in because I have not read them. For I believe 3 of these, I had to find the alternative titles because I had already read those books already. But yeah, so this is the Read Christie challenge. So then this one is the TBR Tarot card game. So for this one, I choose randomly from these tarot cards, and it gives me a prompt. Choose a book which has the word dead in it. and then I just search through my shelves till I find something that fulfills the prompt, and I try to read it at some point or another, see when I can fit it in. So the first one of this year is Everyone Who Can Forgive Me Is Dead. That is one of the books that I found on my shelves that has the word dead in it. So I went ahead and selected that one. And again, a lot of these are fun ways for me to read from my shelves and keep my reading interesting. So this next one is the blurb game. So what I like doing with this one is I like looking at who's blurbed each of the books that I am reading. And what I do is I try to find a book recommendation from those blurbs. So when I read Home Sweet Home by Sarah Pinkster, one of the blurbs recommending this book was by Sarah Gailey, and it talked about Sarah Gailey, the author of The Echo Wife, recommending or blurbing this book. So, because of the fact that I read this and I saw that blurb, this is the book that I want to read next. And I read The Night Storm, and so there was a blurb by Anna Reyes there, who wrote The House in the Pines, a book again that I had on my TBR. So I went ahead and wrote that there. Then I also read Dark Places. Obviously, you saw I read that for a book club. And then that was blurbed by Stephen King. So I picked The Long Walk as the Stephen King book that I would like to read, simply because The Long Walk is one of the books that I would like to read because of my 24 and 24. So I went ahead and picked that. So sometimes it'll say the author only, and sometimes it'll talk about the author and the writer of. And if it says writer of, I'll pick whatever that book is, if it's something I have on my shelves. If I don't have it on my shelf, then I pick something from that author that is already on my shelves. And again, it's just another fun way of me reading more things and finding connecting points, and it's something that I find appealing and interesting, seeing the success that I have with each of these. Sometimes it'll continue leading somewhere, other times it won't. There are books that there's no blurbs on, and I do read a lot of books from book of the month, versions of books that don't really have a lot of like blurbs that recommend the book or talk about the book. So at times it just kind of ends there. So now when I read The Echo Wife, I'll see if anyone has blurbed The Echo Wife, and then I'll add that here. If not, that's kind of where this one ends, and I'll just start off with something new. So this next one is I like to document when the books that I am reading were written. So, and all of this is tracking. I'm a big fan of trackers and tracking and patterns and stuff like that. So I went ahead and put from 2025 all the way to 1900. I added all of those years there. And then this bottom part, I always leave for duplicates. I tend to read a lot of new releases. So as you see here, I went ahead and read my 2024 book, but I've also read after that three more 2024 books. So I add all the extras down here. But my goal is to kind of see, am I reading things from different time periods? Am I reading older works? So far, the oldest thing I've read is 1942, and I believe that was the Agatha Christie that I read in January. And again, it just gives me the ability to track more things. So I also like partaking in the scavenger hunt game. So it's a list of prompts that I have found on various booktubers uh videos, and you basically complete the prompts searching through your shelves until you land at your next read, right? So finally, when I did it at the beginning of the year to set my journal up, it was The Comfort of Crows, the book that ended up being a part of the first scavenger hunt selection. So that's why I have that one here. Have not read it yet. So I haven't chosen another one. Once I read this one, I'll go ahead and participate again in a scavenger hunt and try to find the next one for this. So I also, besides the tarot card one, I do have a lot of these from various Etsy shops that are TBR cards or TBR reduction games, and I'm a big fan of them. So this one This page is kind of focusing on this. So the one I picked out randomly for this month was count the books on a shelf and randomly generate a number and then pick from there. So what ended up coming out was The Lion Game, which I'm very happy about because I've been meaning to read this Ruth Ware backlist for a while. I believe I'm almost all caught up with Ruth Ware's books, and that's the book that popped up for this. And I'll go ahead and this is a booktuber. I'll go ahead and link her channel at the bottom. I also like partaking in the Read with Jenna and Oprah book club and Good Morning America book club. I do these not as faithfully as most people do, simply because I participate in so many of them. So what I tend to do is, if I like the book, I'll go ahead and add it to here, and I'll add it to my TBR. If it's a book that I know is not my genre or is something that I'm really not going to enjoy, then I kind of skip it for that month and move forward. I also don't read these necessarily month of. So I want to read The Life Cycle of the Common Octopus, which was the January selection. And I also want to read This Is a Love Story, which was the February book. So I will be reading both of these because they both sounded very interesting to me. But I do give myself some leeway when it comes to these, simply because a lot of times they are genres that I don't really love. They do tend to pick a lot of historical fiction, which is not my favorite. Sometimes they pick nonfictions that I'm really not interested in reading, although I do like some nonfiction. I'm more selective about them. So yeah, I basically read them if I feel moved. So Reese's Book Club, this is the January selection. I'm not really interested in the February selection, so I won't be participating. I did start reading The Three Lives of Kate K, and unfortunately, I soft DNF'd it, but I think I'm DNFing. You'll see that. I waited for this month to see if I could pick it back up again, but I'll probably, since I did try again this month, you'll probably see that in my wrap up for February that I'm officially DNFing The Three Lives of Kate K. So you'll hear more about that in my wrap up. So I also like to keep track of the Kindle Unlimited recommendations that people give me, because a lot of times, well, you can only have a certain number of the books checked out. So I'll find out about a book that I'm really interested in, but then I won't be able to download it immediately. So if that happens, I'll just go ahead and add it to the list. And once I do read it, I mark it off. And this just helps me keep track of those books that people have recommended to me that are on Kindle Unlimited, and it gives me an option to read them. So yeah, that's what this one is. So this is the scratch off card game. So I did purchase these from a shop on Etsy, and basically you select however many this comes in a jar, and however many of these you end up getting, you can go ahead, and this is the jar. I'll just show you real quick. Once you get the card, it's a TBR card. What should I read next? And then you yourself write down the title of a book that you'd like to get to on your shelf, and then you put this sticker on top, and then you kind of create your jar, and then you can pick from here, right? And scratch off, and then you see what your next book is going to be. So the books that I put in here are not books that are on any other of my lists. So I do that as like books that are really interesting to me, that I got really excited about, but that didn't really fit into any of the other challenges. I went ahead and prepared those at the beginning of the year. I do that at the start of the year, and I formulate that. And so it gives me yet another opportunity to randomly get things off my shelves. So I've neglected this one a little bit. Part of me has done this purposefully. Another part of me has done it because I haven't had the time. So this is where I write down anticipated releases. So the way that this works is I usually go through various videos online of booktubers that I really like. I also go on Goodreads and look at what some of my favorite authors have coming out. And so I add them as anticipated releases. I just I haven't really caught up a lot with it because I am trying to make a dent on the physical books I already have, and also because I get very excited and start pre-ordering a ton of these, and I'm trying to be a little more conservative with that. But yeah, I have these here. So once I get to start watching some of those anticipated releases videos, I haven't really seen a lot of them online. I've purposely kept them on videos that I want to watch but haven't seen yet. I'll go ahead and sit down and curate this list a little bit more, but these are just some things that are on my radar that I'd like to get. So here we have the Midnight Society Book Club. Again, this is another book club that I try to participate in. This is from the channel Reading Riley. I will also link her channel down below. I believe this year she changed it up a little bit and she's doing like every other month. It used to be a monthly book club, and now this year she went ahead and changed it to making it like every other month or skipping a month or two. So her January selection was Rest Stop, and I did read that. Give it 3.75 stars. And then her March book is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, which is already on my list because of other book clubs. So I will probably be reading this before March. And then The Unworthy is already the May selection. And that's what we know so far for the Midnight Society Book Club. So this is my best friend's book club. This is just a book club, an in-person book club for just my best friend and I. And we've read together several times in our lives. We've had versions of our book club, and then we've stopped and picked it back up again. So last year we started doing this again, and it gives us an opportunity to get together every couple weeks and talk about books and just share some things when it comes to reading together. So the book that we started off the year with was Word Hunter. I did finish reading this already. I do have to put the rating on there. But this was our first choice, and we will be meeting soon to discuss this one and pick our next book. So this is my real life book club. So this is a new addition for this year, and it's Read Around the World Challenge. So I've wanted to do this one for a while. I just didn't know how I would be able to do it in a way that I liked or that was aesthetically pleasing to me. So what I did was I got these maps of the world and I kind of cut them out and put them together. But what I'm trying to basically do is read books that take place in different parts of the world or who that have authors from different parts of the world. So either one works, right? So I do have to add Scotland because I just finished reading Beautiful Ugly, so I do have to add Scotland to here. But so far this is what we currently have. So we have the United Kingdom here, so I guess that's marked off already. I have Texas, Missouri, Canada, and obviously there are books that don't really mention locations or places and stuff like that, so those don't get documented. But I'm just very curious to see where most of the books that I'm reading take place, or where the authors are from. So that's the Read Around the World one. So this is where I keep track of my 5-star reads. So each time that I find a 5-star, it gets placed on this page. And I did very optimistically give myself 4 pages for this. So 2 spreads. I am hoping to fill this with 5 stars. So far, there's been 2, maybe 3. You'll have to watch my vlog that's upcoming to find out whether or not Beautiful Ugly gets that 5-star. But yeah, this is where I put my 5-star reads. So here is another one of these tackle your TBRs. So this is where you start and you kind of follow around here, and this is where you end. Again, I do jump around with this and I don't try to, okay, my next book has to be under 300 pages to fulfill this. I don't do that. Whatever I'm reading, I try to see what it can fit into from the beginning and making my way forward. So if I just finished reading right now Beautiful Ugly, I'll go through the beginning and see, well, it is a new release, maybe it's that. It is over 300, so it won't work for that. And I just make my way around till I find a category that it can fit in, and then I kind of keep track of it on this little bookmark. So this is my favorite book for the month. So new month, new favorite. My favorite book of January was Five Little Pigs. So that's where we have it. We'll have to see by the time I'm done with February what will be my favorite read of February. But whatever it is, it will come out here. And by the end, I'll have my 12. I won't say my 12 favorite because that's up for debate. But I'll have a monthly favorite for each of the months. So there'll be 12 total. However, it does happen that at times there'll be a month where I have a lot of favorites, and then there'll be other months where I don't have a lot of favorites. So yeah, this is always tricky the way that this works out. Speaking of that, the bracket is also pretty tricky. So I do like to do a reading bracket and pick the winner, my top book of 2025, but this is also challenging. So the way I decided to, and I've done this a million times differently, every year I kind of change the way I do it. So what I decided to do for 2025 is I went ahead and picked a January, a February, and a March favorite, and then that'll be quarter one favorite. And then I'll pick an April, May, and June favorite for each month, and then a quarter two favorite. And then quarter one and quarter two will kind of fight it off, and that'll be the favorite for the first half of the year. And then I'll do the same for the second half of the year, and then those two will compete to see what's my favorite of the year. And yeah, it should be just like a very fun way of selecting my favorite book of the year. So here will be my top 10 books of the year. So I'll narrow down my favorites of the month or whatever comes up here in my bracket. And that should kind of yield my favorites, my top 10 of the year. Then I have my monthly overviews. So what happens here is I build a very soft, malleable TBR for the month. And I have a little January book bingo here from an Etsy shop again. And everything that I read, these are the 9 books that I read during January. So I do mark them off, and then I find a spot for them on my bingo, and then I try to see if I can meet bingo in any kind of way. And yeah, it gives me a place to kind of move forward with my reading. As you see, my TBRs are very ambitious. It gives me a lot of options. It has all of the things from the different pages inside on here. And then what I do is whatever doesn't get read here carries over to the following month. And that's eventually how I get it off of my list. I just kind of, you know, move it onto here, and eventually like it does get read. So I do add new things for February, but I do keep up. So for example, an Academy of Liars, I've had that on my TBR since January, and I've also added it again to my February. And these keep getting longer, and I don't see that as an overwhelming thing. I just see like the possibilities of what I could read or pick up according to my mood, kind of opening up a little bit. So I do have to kind of catch up a little bit more on what I've read here. I am a little bit behind on tracking these. But yeah, this is the February one. And I've gone ahead and set up each of the months in preparation for when we get there. I also like doing an overview, which I have not done for January yet, but I like doing a little bit of an overview of the month at on that page and then transferring it over to this next one, which I'll show you now in a minute. So this one is a work in progress as well, but this is very quickly where I do some calculations, how many pages I read that month, how many books I read. Of the books I read, how many were novels, novellas, mangas, or graphic novels? What was my average rating for the month? How many of these were new to me authors? How many of them were authors I had read from before? How many new releases I read? How many books did I read on my Kindle? How many did I read solely as audiobooks? How many were a combination of physical and audio? And how many were just physical reads? And so I like to kind of build my statistics this way so that I can calculate at the ending of the year those stats. But I like to keep a running record of them to facilitate everything for my end of year plans. Then here's where I have readathon pages or spreads. As readathons come up, I create these cute little pages for them. So obviously I did participate in Winterween, and it was a readathon that Gabby from Gabby Reads hosted January 10th through the 16th. And she did give us these beautiful printouts, and I did order from Rachel's shop all of these stickers, her sister Rachel. And so I did order these to decorate my page, and I went ahead and put here what books I wanted to read, and I did complete all of the prompts, and I just went ahead and marked them off as I read them. So this, I know I had the monthly bingo. I also have an overall bingo that I try to complete with the different things I'm reading. So here we have, for example, I went ahead and put what we see when we read as a book that has been on your TBR list for over 3 months. That book had been on my TBR for well over 5 or 6 years. So I went ahead and fulfilled that. And yeah, it's just another way of filling in, and this is just an overall yearly bingo. If I do complete it before the year's over, I'll add another page toward the ending and I'll do another book bingo. But I kind of just like to complete one, focus on completing one before I move on to starting another one. Then this one is another roll your read game that I play. So I try to combine some of these. So, for example, the first one I did was the purple one. So I went ahead and rolled the dice, and this is what I ended up getting. These do come with a card, and the cards kind of tell you what the prompts are. So, for example, these are the cards, and then I will shuffle and pick one of them, right? So for January, this is the one that came up. And then I went ahead and rolled my dice, and I got a 2. And I had to read a book set in another country, which was perfect for January because I was already reading Five Little Pigs for the Christie Challenge. So I was able to include that one. And so the one I got for February, I got the red card. That's the one that I selected randomly. And then I rolled the dice and got a number 4, long time on my TBR. So I picked the test. And I picked the test because it has been on my TBR for a long time, but it's also one of the books that I want to read, I believe from the 23 and 23 or whatnot. And yeah, that's how I do the roll your read game. Next is a thriller challenge with various tropes. So this one's a lot of fun. Basically, when I'm reading thriller or horror books, if I discover any of these tropes, I go ahead and add the title of the book. So Missing Person, I went ahead and added The Doll's House, which I read in January. A Cabin in the Woods, this is where we talk things out. Untrustworthy Spouse, I went ahead and put The Night of the Storm. Something dealing with an inheritance, I added Brat, and so on and so forth. So whatever I read, I try to figure out where I can put it in. So right now I just finished reading Beautiful Ugly. So I already know it could be unreliable narrator, dual timeline, it could be trapped together. It could also be a couple others that I don't really want to tell you because they might potentially be spoilery in nature as I'm looking at this now. But yeah, I would go ahead and fill it in for that. Here we have Oprah's book club. So this is again another one of those that I try to do. A New Earth is the book that she selected. She doesn't really do it monthly, but it is her first selection for January or for the start of the year. And I have not read this yet, but it's on my list. Her second selection has already been revealed. I believe it was revealed yesterday, and I am interested in it, so I will be picking that up and adding it to here. Same thing with the Good Morning America book club, adult and YA. So I was interested in the adult one, and I was also interested in the YA option, and I actually started reading it this morning. Afterlife, I'm already a little bit in. So I am reading Afterlife at this point. Then I am also a part of Kayla's Besties, which is Kayla's membership group for Books on Lala. So, as a part of her Besties book club, these are the two books that I want to read to be able to participate in those read alongs. And there you have it. We've kind of reached the end, but not really. As you know, reading journals are a work in progress. We are constantly adding and changing and moving things around. But to me, my reading journal is such an important part of my reading. I feel so proud to document physically all the books that I am reading, all the challenges I am being a part of. And it's also such a great outlet for me to do something else that I am passionate about, which is stickering and journaling and tracking things. And so I find that this is the perfect opportunity for me to mix two of my hobbies and kind of put them together in this format. I can, if you're interested in this video, I can also show you my journal from last year or the year before so that you kind of see some of the spreads I've kept or changed or moved around. I am pretty good about completing my book journal. I actually follow them throughout the year. I've been doing this long enough that it's part of my reading and I look forward to doing it. And it just helps me remember books better. It helps me talk about books better and helps me keep track on the long run of the things that I have read. So I know this video has been pretty lengthy, but I did want to share with you some of my other interests and passions. Um, if you've made it this far, thank you so much. Let me know in the comments below. Do you have a reading journal? Is this something you've tried before? Is it something that interests you? And are there any spread ideas that you do in your own journal that maybe I don't? And if you want to share those with me, please do. And also let me know in the comments if you like videos like this and if you would like to see some of my reading journals from the past. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this, please make sure to hit like and subscribe so I can continue bringing you more bookish content. Till next time, thank you and have a good one.